Hello everyone, this is Daria Lawson and welcome back to another episode of Decomposing. Today on the show, we're discussing the notoriety of band breakups in the music world and the infamy that surrounds them. So, a favorite band breaking up is something probably the majority of us can relate to, and even if not, I'm sure we've all heard about or experienced some of the impact of bands breaking up around us, and just what seems to happen after the event. When I think of band breakups, I associate them with this immense feeling of devastation or letdown. The public response from band breakups can be extremely, shockingly reactionary. I mean, sometimes it can even be as dramatic as a national outcry because of how much these groups mean to us. This makes sense, right? Because those relationships we have with the music and musicians in particular, even if they are one-sided, are unbelievably deeply rooted. Having that source as what seems to be someone to go to when there's no one else, someone that understands your thoughts, personal problems, someone to console you, to suddenly remove you from that kind of fantasy, I guess, and flash you back to reality, it almost feels like a little bit of a personal attack, doesn't it? It instantly forces us to realize that they're all human, just like us, and not a source solely meant to please us. It really just feels like they're breaking up with you at first. I mean, how dare they put their own feelings before us and sacrifice ours? Don't they know all they've done for us in the past? Don't they know their impact on their audience and now they have the audacity to throw it all away? When, really, we all know that they aren't breaking up to dissatisfy us as fans. I mean, they're always breaking up because of issues relating to creativity, inner relationships, or business. But as a society, we usually don't react with those considerations. It's a lot more human to react emotionally in the way that we do and be angry, defensive, and upset. When I think of some key defining band breakups who have had this impact, probably the very first that comes to mind is the Beatles breakup. Oh, and what a national outcry this situation was. If you aren't well versed in this historic event, well, it was the dictionary definition of devastation. The Beatles, who provided a soundtrack to the lives of so many young people at the time, who were a symbol of natural-born talent, drive, and creativity, who were already understood to have an indescribably revolutionary effect on music and anything that would come after them. Essentially loved and adored by everyone everywhere, had the audacity to split up. To start to explain how big this was, there's literally an entire Wikipedia page on the breakup of the Beatles, for measure. But at the time, the media coverage of the drama created an immensely chaotic atmosphere. Fans were literally so distraught they were picketing and protesting. For an unreasonable amount of time after, there were offers of millions upon millions of dollars for the band to reform and even do a last performance on TV shows because of the desperation the public had at their loss of such a connection. As we know, no amount of money or fan outcry ever resulted in a Beatles resurrection, not even for one last full lineup performance. And that's because, as mentioned, that's never what it's about. Oh, how it would have been so much easier if it was. The Beatles breakup was a culmination of creative differences, relationship dynamics, business disagreements, and burnout. Like pretty much every other band breakup always is. We don't really get to hear about these instances behind the scenes as fans until they become something kind of infamous about the group that gets covered later in a historic look back. So it's hard for us to separate our emotions from these situations and try to understand the perspective of the musicians. Like, that's really the last thing we try to do when a group calls it quits. So that's exactly what I'm gonna try to do. Put it into perspective. The bands, they're usually made up of close friends, people they met early in life. So think of a close friend you have. I think we have all had the experience of spending an extended amount of time with a good or even best friend, and over the course of this time you start to notice these little personality traits or habits that you weren't aware of before, and maybe some start to annoy you a little bit. Well, more time goes by, and now they're progressively getting on your nerves. And eventually, after your time spent together comes to an end, you're really looking forward to having some alone time again. But this is your best friend. How could you possibly be getting sick of them? It's just a new adjustment, right? It's compromise in the relationship that you're just not used to. Okay, well, spending a week or so with your best friend, imagine being the Beatles and spending 10 years together. 10 years, almost day in, day out. Not only are you just living with 4 other people's presence constantly, but you're in a perpetual state of group project mode, which I don't know about you, but I don't think the majority of us are big fans of group projects or group work. Think about when there's a disagreement in your group projects. There's usually creative disagreements that cause little flare-ups. One member will go away not fully satisfied with the turnout. One member will wish they had more contribution. There's going to be inevitable compromise. Well, imagine encountering those same problems on, every song on an album, and then that exact same process repeating itself for the next 10 years of albums you put out. Surely, that's bound to put some wear and tear on your relationships. Of course, not all bands start out with this presence of negativity. Usually it develops, but it's generally a main cause in eating away at a group towards their inevitable demise. And I say inevitable demise because, well, I think band breakups really are inevitable. For starters, just think about what bands have broken up. Sure, some reformed, sure, some just lost a couple members, but really, almost every band has encountered this. Why is this so common? There's very few of us who are totally satisfied with doing one thing for our entire life. We need change, naturally. We don't make ourselves stay at the same job if we start to become bored with, sick of, or unhappy with the atmosphere. Bands part because members have learned that maybe they need to be creative in ways that are different from the band's initial aim. And I mean, we wouldn't hold ourselves to be the same person with the same interests when we're 25 as we would at 35, would we? Members realize that they have personality differences that weren't there before, after growing, learning, and aging. We definitely don't force ourselves to maintain relationships with individuals who we have grown apart from in everyday life. So why are we expecting individuals in bands to be invincible and unaffected by the exact same life hurdles in these ways that we are not? Band breakups are unfortunate in the sense that what spurs them to happen is some form of negativity, but they certainly aren't a bad thing. In terms of going solo, this is the opening of a new opportunity. These are people who are offered a second shot to reinvent themselves, to challenge their creativity, to reflect on what they really want to gain out of creating music, to realize that they're not just in it for the success status, because no band would break up if they were concerned about maintaining status. To allow a band breakup, I think, is a testament to being a true artist and being very cognitive individuals. It shows that you're able to recognize problems, make adjustments, and be brave enough to sacrifice something you've built up and move on to the next thing. And hey, doesn't it make it all the more exciting if they eventually reform? Sometimes, as they say, distance makes the heart grow fonder, and bands need some grace period to reset and reevaluate, and no amount of fan appreciation or money can equate to the value of such a lesson. Hopefully this provided a little more empathetic of a perspective. Being a fan of an artist means supporting their creative endeavors. Although it might be hard to react to these instances without our emotions getting in the way, we can put ourselves in their shoes and look forward to their next creative step. As we conclude this episode, try asking yourself, how long do you think you'd be able to last in a band given these ideas and circumstances? Is the band breakup inevitable? Have you ever had any experiences where you reacted similarly to a band breakup? This has been Decomposing with me, Daria Lawson. To hear more episodes of this show and other Arrow podcasts, visit southeastarrow.com/multimedia.